Jefferson Robbins for NCW Life. Seats on the Chelan County Board of Commissioners don't come open very often, but there's one open now in District 3. There are 4 competitors. One of them joins me now, Republican Brandt Cappell. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me this morning.
I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I were a voter, and I am a voter, introduce yourself to me and tell me about your background. You know, if you're a candidate presenting yourself to me for my vote, what kind of candidate are you?
Yeah, sure. So, husband, father of 3 little girls. The youngest is 2.5 months old, so busy time in my house. I am a almost lifelong resident of Chelan County. Moved up here with my mom when I was pretty young, so lived in Chelan County ever since. Except for some time at WSU, got a degree in natural resource policy and political science. So natural resources, forestry, and fisheries are very important to me and near and dear to me. Great county to have that. We're 87% publicly owned. We have the Columbia River running right through the heart of our valley, and tons of opportunities to be out there recreating and enjoying our natural resources. I'm a public servant. I see myself as serving the folks of right now the 12th District in my job as a legislative assistant to Keith Gaynor. So I'm the person, the one-time full-time year-round staff member that answers the phone. So if you call into that office or you email, I'm the one on the other end that's helping you no matter what the political affiliation is that you have or whoever you voted for. My job is to help you navigate the bureaucracy that is the state government. So look to bring that experience, my experience in natural resources, and just my heart of service and care for this county to the commission.
And you've been a legislative aide for about a dozen years, 13 years, I think you mentioned earlier. Yeah. So people might not know you as a political person, but you are the person they get on the other end of the phone if they need to reach their representative.
Yeah, and I don't see myself as really as a politician. It's kind of an interesting spot to be in. I mean, I'm kind of a policy wonk, kind of a nerd when it comes to those things. So, I really like to dive into helping our constituents solve their problems. And to be upfront and honest, there's a lot of times when people call in and I can't get to what they need, but a lot of times folks just want someone to listen to. And so I spend a lot of time just listening to them and feeling compassionate for them and doing the best that I can. And the joy in my job is when I do get those wins. When someone calls in and has been trying to navigate employment security and is on the brink of losing their house or losing their car. And the last thing I think that people think to do is to call into their legislature. And so when they do that, I know that they're desperate, and I do my best to try and solve those. And sometimes we actually get to help folks out and really do get to make a difference. And so I see as a county commissioner that my job is to listen and learn from the folks. I'm not coming in with a set of goals of legacy or special interests. My job is to serve the people that voted me into office. And so I look to do that, to bring their voice to the county level, and then also to help our state delegation explain what Chelan County needs at the state level, because the state and the county are tied in so tightly in regulations and mandates that come down from the legislature that the county has to implement. I think it's important that Olympia understands that what maybe works in King County and Seattle doesn't work over here.
And so if you're dealing with people as a legislative aide, you say you're just trying to solve their problems, and on a commissioner level you're doing that on a different basis. When you talk about problems for broader Chelan County, what kind of issues do you see, Brandt, that you think are just kind of crying out to be addressed by the commissioners?
Yeah. Well, I think at this point it's going to be hard-pressed to find anyone that hasn't been touched either by the drug addiction, homeless, and the crime situation that's going on in Chelan County. The 3rd District goes all the way up to Chelan and Manson, and in Chelan and Manson we don't see it quite as much because frankly there's not a lot of services up there, but those folks that are in those throes usually come down here into the Wenatchee Valley. We have a really unique opportunity right now. About $20 million was slated from the state capital budget to fund a substance use disorder clinic, a new facility that replaces the one that's here in town that's very old, very dilapidated, needs to be replaced. It's one of the pieces I think we're missing in helping folks that are in the throes of drug addiction. If we can get that sited and built, I think we can then present a chance for those folks to make a choice. You're either going to go to treatment and try and get clean, understanding that it might not happen the first, second, or third time, but we got to do something different than we're doing, or you're going to go to jail. It's not compassion to have these people dying on the streets, to have them doing open drug use, to having them steal things. I've been affected by it. I've had things stolen from my house. I've had, the graffiti down the street. I've had all those things happening. I just don't think it's acceptable what we're allowing to have happen here in Chelan County. And so we have a homelessness coordinator in Chelan County under the commissioners. I've talked with them. I think they have some really good ideas and thoughts, but one of the pieces that we're missing is, what do we do with the folks that want treatment, that need treatment?
When you talk about dealing with crime and tying it back to homelessness or substance abuse disorder, drug addiction or drug use possession is already a crime in the county and in the state. So what different approach should Chelan County be taking other than that which is provided by the judiciary?
Yeah, and I've actually had some conversations with some of our judges here in the county, and I think there's also some question as to there's a misunderstanding of what the judges want to see as far as cases that they're willing to to rule on, and what the prosecutor's office is willing to take on. They only have so much capacity to take on cases. And so when our law enforcement officers are out there and communicating with these folks, they need to know, okay, if I take the time to bring this person in, to give them this choice, and then let's say they don't make the choice to get treatment, bring them in, that they're not going to just be a revolving door, that the prosecutor actually is going to go, yes, we need to prioritize that, and that the judges are going to go, yeah, this is a case that I want to take on. And the conversations I've had is there's some communication that's not going on there. I think back in the 90s, we actually had a committee that was put together that was the commissioners, law enforcement officers, the judiciary, the prosecutor's office that would talk and meet. That hasn't happened in a long time. It's still under our code. But one of the things I've talked to with some of our judges is bringing that back. So I think that would be really important, because our office, we have finite resources, right? We want to make sure that we're using those to the best of our abilities, because there are possession laws. We have changed some of that. It's not the hard hitting that it used to be, and that's a conversation that the state still needs to have. I've seen what the city of Wenatchee does with some of their ordinances on that they've changed on camping in parks. So if we can't necessarily bring them in just for the drug possession use charges, what else can we do to help them to steer them in the right direction?
Have you seen, Brandt, under this county board or previous county boards, votes or issues that have been taken up, and you're like, well, if I were commissioner, I would have gone the other direction? Have they set priorities that you think might have been misguided?
It's interesting at the county level. Where we can affect and what we can affect is rather limited. One of the things that did come up and it hasn't been brought back up, and this was when I ran in 2020, was a hot button issue, was the short-term rentals. We have a statute in place. It's pretty convoluted, fairly complicated. Some folks, it set limits on via zip code of how many STR, short-term rentals, we'll call them STRs for short, could be in a certain zip code.
Right. There's a cap in your living area as to how many places could be offered for short-term rental.
Right, exactly. And when I lived up in Chelan, we actually, in 2012, my wife and I across the street had one of the first short-term rentals before Airbnb was really a thing. And it was great until it wasn't. When we had the party kids that came in and they were up all night and, boyfriend, girlfriend drinking and got in a fight and things like that, it was like, gosh, this really sucks. I don't really want this across the street from me. At the same point, too, though, it's someone else's property. They have the right to do with it as they please, as long as it's not affecting me. My problem was, and at the time I said, we need to put a pause in, which actually the commissioners did about 3 months after that, and we need to reassess and look at other places. We're not the only county and the only place in the state or the nation that has this tourism dependency, and therefore a need for short-term rentals or places for people to stay. They then set up a board to look at this, and a committee, and it had folks that were pro and folks that were con. they really didn't come up with really any solution. I mean, they both kind of stood their ground. And so what we came up with was kind of splitting the baby. And unfortunately, I think we needed to enforce the laws that we had on noise ordinances, occupancy, some of the issues with is a house being over-occupied for their sewer or septic system. We do have some enforcement officers now that are underneath the Chelan County Sheriff's Department, but the problem is, when are these issues happening? It's not 9 to 5 when these folks are on staff. It's in the middle of the night. So some folks, going back to what ended up happening, folks that had STRs and were fine, never had any issues, didn't get permitted because they didn't fit into the lottery system, didn't get it theirs. And we still have the same issues. I'm still hearing from folks up there, especially in the Chelan-Manson area, that are unhappy with what's going on. So there's been a reluctancy to readdress that from the county commissioner's standpoint. I think they're kind of seeing how things are going, but I'm seeing it now and talking with people. It's not working. We need to go back.
There was a vote recently on the county commissioners board to reopen that process and see if that cap needs to be lifted. For one thing, that's just one aspect. But talking about STRs, one of the reasons that people were pushing for some kind of regulation was the idea that they move housing prices upward, and that housing prices have become unattainable in Chelan County. How would you, as commissioner, balance those needs? We need more housing to house people who want to live here.
Yeah.
We need to conserve those areas that are designated for conservation, and we need to keep housing at a fair rate for people to be able to afford it. How do you deal with all of that?
Yeah, it's a lot. To be honest with you, at the county level, we can only control so much, and a lot of the land use management that the county does is on a larger scale than what we would need to see for like affordable housing, for workforce housing. You know, I'm in a generation where my wife and I were grateful that we found a house when we did, and we were able to have a decent interest rate, and it was really recently. But I never thought that my first house would be a $300,000 plus house, and that's pretty modest anymore for our area.
That's the
right?
middle of the range in Wenatchee now.
It really is. And so I look at it and I see my peers really struggling, whether they're going to pay a large amount for rent or even more for a mortgage because of the interest rates. So going back to what you're saying, the interesting thing, there is this debate on STRs of is that driving up home prices or not? A lot of the STRs that we see, that I've seen, are not houses that would have been built that would have been affordable. Especially in the county where our zoning is such that you're really not going much smaller than a half acre on a lot of those zoning areas because of the Growth Management Act that dictates from the state down to the counties of how they manage that growth. So I think it plays a part in it, but I don't know that it really affects it as much as some people believe. The things that I think that the county should work on is working with our city partners. So whether that's in Chelan, Iniat, Wenatchee. I've had some really great conversations with Iniat. The mayor of Iniat and their council is really looking to be the bedroom community. As long as they're still a community, that's the part that they don't want to lose because they don't have industry there. So how do we take and encourage developers to put in more, whether that's condos or duplexes or apartments or some sort of a housing structure that's more affordable and obtainable for the workforce in like Chelan or in Wenatchee. You could do the same outside of Chelan towards, Chelan Falls in some of those areas, but to be honest, it's going to be very, very difficult. And even the Housing Trust up in Chelan has struggled to build on a subsidized basis affordable housing. When you're talking about a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo up there that you don't own the land because the trust does, and it's $335,000, they're struggling to find people that fit in the income bracket to fill in there. So at the county level, going back, I think we're really limited based on our land use ability at the county to really encourage and find and cite where we would put affordable housing. But I think it's just time that we all as a community in Chelan County come together and look at it from, what can the ports do, what can the PUDs do, and what can the commissioners do, and our local city partners do to encourage those things.
You're running, Brandt, in Chelan County Commissioner District 3. The primary will happen within that district. Only the voters in your district get to vote on who should advance to the general. In the general, the whole county votes, and they get to decide who the District 3 commissioner is. Is that system fair and balanced and workable, or should it be looked at from a perspective of, well, maybe only District 3 votes for District 3?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I think the reason that we, our forefathers designed it this way is there's only 3 of us on the commission. And at the end of the day, we're voting not just on issues that are specific to our district. We're voting on issues that are full county-wide issues. But it really provides a unique opportunity for us to speak to the issues within our district in the primary, and to make sure that that our district has a voice in who the top 2 folks are going to be. And then going to the general, it does really change things, because the things that affect Chelan and Manson are much different than what's going on in Malaga and in Lake Wenatchee. But I don't know that it needs to change, but I think it really surprises people and takes people off guard that, wait, okay, so you're running in this area of North Wenatchee all the way up to Chelan and Manson, but then if you make it through, you'll be on the ballot in the general. It's just interesting. I'd be curious to know more about why they chose that. But you look at other areas like Spokane County or King County, where they have a council, and they have 5 or 7 folks on there, and that's a little bit different. And you have a little bit more spread of votes versus that 3. And when being one of 3, I think it's proper that the full county has a decision at the end of the day.
Well, Brandt Cappell, Republican candidate for Chelan County Commissioner District 3. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
You're watching the